This is Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast, a podcast about, you guessed it, nonprofit fundraising. This isn't the first podcast about it, but definitely not like any others you've listened to. This is a podcast for fundraisers, by fundraisers. No boring charts or the same stale best practices you've heard for years. No ideas that only work in theory here. No concepts from people who aren't in the same trenches as you are every single day. Each week, you'll get practical strategies and tips to craft messages that engage donors and raise more money. This isn't smoke and mirrors. Everything has been pressure tested in the real world. Plus, you can start using them as soon as the episode ends. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Thomas and Steve Thomas.
Hello. Welcome to episode 24. Almost at quarter of a century. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Mailbag episode number 2.
Woohoo.
Yeah, we did it.
Well, actually, they did it. But
Well,
anyway.
I guess that's true. But either way.
Yeah. Questions.
Questions.
That's cool.
I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, Vice President at Oneicity.
And I'm Steve Thomas, CEO and one of the founding partners of Oneicity.
Oneicity's a boutique ad agency. We focus on fundraising and marketing for nonprofits, and our team measures their time in the business doing this work in decades, and the company itself, our team of vendors, we've been around for well more than a decade. Mm-hmm. And you and I started this podcast because we ended up, we just would talk fundraising all the time in places we really shouldn't, because as you know, this work doesn't stop. It goes well after office hours are over, well after the work week is done. And we just realized we had a podcast without having one, so we started one. We grabbed some mics. And we want to get more of your questions at podcast@oneicity.com. This is where the good questions make it into a mailbag episode. Depending on how many good questions we get, maybe a bad question will make it in. You never know.
How do you judge good and bad questions? You just like them.
Yeah, I can't. I can't really say. Yeah. So sending questions. We can do a mailbag number 3, number 4. Those are just a lot more fun to do sometimes than picking a topic and going at it. Give us your 5-star reviews, 4-star reviews, 3.5 is fine. Wherever you are listening to your podcast right now, if you're watching on video, like and subscribe, hit the buttons, do all the things.
It's over there.
That's right, here-ish. There we go. Close enough. Like and subscribe, 5-star reviews, give us an actual review. If you give us a 3.5, tell us what you'd like to hear more of or less of. If it's less of Steve, we can make that work.
Everybody wants less of me.
That's right. So first, we always want to focus on practical things, and even though we're doing a mailbag episode, that's not going away. So something you should be doing, you got to try this. We're still going to have it, and I'll go first. In this one, mine is kind of weird. You should get outside of fundraising. So
A lot of people are looking to get out of that. Yeah, that's true.
Okay. I don't mean you should leave the industry, but
okay.
you should get out of it and advertising in what you're doing. You're talking about, you're reading, you're right. Like, don't let it.
Come on.
Don't let it consume your life.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Because and even in a well-meaning, because a good fundraiser, we talk about, you want to read these things, you want to follow these things, try these things, and that can end up becoming everything you do in a day, especially juggling life, family, kids, whatever it is. And not only, even if you have good work-life balance, if all of that is just fundraising, you're losing a lot of opportunity to come across and find the good ideas. And we talk about it a lot, but the example that jumped out to me was Formula One racing, and there's a team that's family run called Williams, and they've been family run for 50, 60 years. And their last leader was the daughter and had just come in it, and it had been an established team when she was born, and that was all she knew. and she went to school, she went to college or uni, but this is all she did. And so when things weren't going well, she had no other experience to draw on. To say, we got to do it this way. And they had then sold to a hedge fund, but the point of that isn't the money and the influx. It's now there are guys coming in who are saying, well, because of my experience doing this widget technology here, let's think around the corner this way. Mm-hmm. And because she had grown up on this ship going this direction, she was an expert in shepherding it and guiding it.
Only saw this one part of it. Yeah.
And as long as it was moving that direction, she could keep it on the rails. But if the winds shifted, she couldn't actually steer it. Yeah. And that in fundraising, there are good ideas to find in fundraising. I mean, so often one of our segments is mail that we get, but some of the best ideas we've had, or some of the best ideas our team has had, comes out of things that aren't fundraising.
Yeah, started somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And then you adapt it. Yeah. So get out of fundraising. Yeah. That's the headline.
Well, you draw constantly on your tech and software experience before you came into the company as it is.
Yeah.
It's just, that's a natural thing.
And if you don't have those, you can't say, well, I'm going to think outside the box on if you don't have those experiences, those synapses can't tie things together, and you can't think of that.
So if you don't have a career, if you don't want to leave fundraising to come back, what do you recommend?
Look for accounts to follow that are business tech related. You may want to go to guys who do summaries so that you don't have to just figure out what they're talking about, or read tech business books. Yeah. I'm a big fan of histories, so you can read histories of successful companies that have solved problems, and learning about those experiences that these guys and gals went through to fix things or figure this out, not the next day. Don't read it really fast tonight knowing it's going to solve that problem that's bugging you tomorrow. It's not going to help you figure out how to do that, but in 2 weeks, 2 months, it's going to fire.
Well, and that's our friend Roy Williams down in Austin, the ad guy, talks constantly about the need to learn from something outside of your experience. And the classic example he always cites is how Henry Ford figured out how to use an assembly line by looking at a Chicago stockyard where they deassembled cows. We'll tell that story another time.
Okay,
but it's great, and it's just a great example of looking across the fence at another industry or another something, another history, another whatever, and looking at how they do what they do, not even trying to apply it yet. Just study and look at what they do. I love that. That's a great idea. Okay, mine, and I knew this was going to happen eventually. Mine's an F1 too. Formula One has become a little bit part of our lives. I'm new to Formula One, and as a non-rich European dude, it's hard for me to understand exactly how this works. And so I found an explainer, and we were talking about that this weekend about, it's like, I didn't understand that worked. And so this is, even though I'm trying to be deep in it, in this maybe 3-screen long explainer, there were 3 significant things about Formula One I didn't understand. And on one of them, I thought I understood it, but I was wrong. The other 2, it wasn't even in my head. The connector there is. And
so what they explained to you had a positive, and it's not just, I didn't know that, but that actually now impacts and improves the way you watch the sport.
Yeah, which has very little to do with fundraising until you say most of your donors need an explainer about how you do your work. Now,
unpack that.
Yeah, so one of our clients, I'll give you an example, is a domestic violence shelter for women and children. And one of the things that we built for them was something that explains how they work with children who've experienced trauma like this, and it explains the things they do and the whys and how they go about it. And in each of they're not steps, but in each component, there's a description of here's what we do, then there's the here's why, and then here's why that's important. And over and over again, I encounter organizations that have deep, big work. And donors, as they come into the organization, they don't need the explainer because they have probably just bought in at a superficial, an emotional level, at a starting place. And your job is to build a relationship, help them understand more about what you're doing, continue to help them connect to the cause. Well, an explainer is not something you say, okay, now you're at step 3 on the donor journey, and that's where we send the explainer.
Here's your
right?
explainer packet.
But it can be something that if someone is getting interested, that you put on the website, you make available, you allow them to access it as they're ready. One of the worst mistakes you make for an adult is teach them before they're ready. One of the best things you can do is when an adult is ready to learn, provide them resources for them to learn on their own. So develop a simple explainer of why you do what you do the way you do it. And that will benefit you as you're working your way into a relationship with either a new donor, or here's what you'll find. There are people who've been with you for the life of your organization practically who still don't understand some of the things in there.
And I think it's a good idea to put it on the website because that allows you to let a donor self-select when
exactly.
If they don't need it, they won't go to that page.
And once you create that content, then those can be little chunks that you can
sprinkle
all over the place. And
everywhere. It becomes social content, emails, e-newsletters.
Yeah. So, explainers.
All the things.
All the things.
All right. So, question time. We split up our questions, but we didn't talk about order.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go first.
I like that.
So my first question number 1 is I've read and heard that I need a strategy to go after millennial donors, but I'm not one. And the only one in my department doesn't have any ideas. So where do I start? In short, to start a millennial strategy, you may want to start by stopping. You'll hear lots of speeches, TED Talks, seminars.
We've talked about the maddest I've seen you in a long time was coming out of one of those.
You can find print, verbal, all of these things talking about how to fundraise to millennials. Here's what millennials want, and this is what millennials care about. 9 times out of 10, they are conducted or written by an old.
Okay.
And that is the maddest. I've been maybe professionally, at least recently, is coming out of a seminar telling me, because I'm a millennial, I'm a geriatric millennial, telling me what I cared about in changing the world and causes. And like 2 of them applied to me. And that's not to say that those things don't apply to a millennial or some millennial.
Yeah.
But you can't take any step. Nobody's telling you, here's what boomers care about. Here's what no other generation is being painted with such a wide brush. And let's just put that aside. Going after a millennial may not even be what you want to do right now anyway, because a lot of millennials, again, there's an arc of who was born when, but millennials have gone through at least one huge financial crisis, some of them 2.
Yeah.
And I saw a headline that I think it's 25% of millennials expect to rent for their entire life and never own a home.
Yeah.
And that's just a symptom or a data point. But millennials at this point don't have the income, the giving potential to make it worth going at them specifically, getting a millennial fundraising coordinator, developing a full millennial funnel and millennial fundraising strategy.
With an app.
Yeah, with an app to go after them. That just doesn't that just doesn't matter and that doesn't work right now.
The
But
ROI didn't play out as part of what you're saying, right?
not even close.
Okay.
But I think all of this unicorn rainbow chasing is in the idea of, I want my organization to be around for the next 40, 50 years.
Good plan.
Those people over there, these millennials, are going to be who's coming forward on the conveyor belt. I want to make sure I don't stop acquiring donors, which that's a smart strategy.
Right.
However, it's not time to go at them right now. You're going to waste money on a specific strategy for them. So to get a millennial donor, just be ready when they fall off the conveyor belt and they have the giving potential. And to do that, the things that will make that easy to do without having to do anything separate are focus on authenticity and demonstrating the impact for the cause. Not as much on you, but we are doing this. This is happening because of all the giving. I don't get into what all millennials like, but some of the things that have rung true and people I've talked to, it seems like these could be things that might be semi-universal across millennials. They care about authenticity. They want an organization to not be stuffy and corporate. They want an organization who's down in the gutter and the foxhole, getting things done, making change. And they want to know that the organization they're partnering with is making a change. It's not the middleman. Don't want to waste our money there because we don't have as much money as everybody else. We want to make a change. So be authentic in your messaging and demonstrate the impact you're having. Weird. That's what we've advised you to do on this podcast anyway.
Well, and I was just sitting here as a
what are you?
Really old baby boomer, but I'm not a geriatric anything.
Makes me so mad.
Boomers follow track with a lot of those by the fancy schmancy guys who do this. But to your point, funny, if you focus on the right things in your fundraising message and don't worry quite as much about hitting all the buttons over on millennials, some of which, if you hit those strongly, the boomers are going to go, by generation are going to go, well, those aren't my people, which candidly, you're stuck with us for a little bit longer. We're dying as fast as we can, but it's going to take some time.
So the way to start a millennial strategy is don't. Just be authentic. Show everyone the change you're making. And when they're ready, they'll come to you.
You're never going to make any money on your your millennial strategy like that.
But
it's a good plan.
Just stay tuned for the Oneicity millennial strategy because ours is the one that's going to work. Three easy payments of $99.99, and we'll tell you how to get all the youngins.
Are you just going to keep rolling? Because you were rolling.
I'm going to need a minute.
Cool.
I think I've used all of my
okay.
All my vitriol.
Making vitriol by the gallon. Okay. This question, and I'm glad we've agreed to kind of trim up all the fluff around some of these questions because there was a couple of nice things said here.
Yeah, we don't need.
But there was a terse one. There was a terse one, and I tried not to read too much into it.
I heard curse word.
No, terse. Whoa, terse. Okay, this one is one of the terse ones. Hey guys, I need to explain consequences more. I think I get it, but then I'm not sure. Okay, so consequence first is one of the four pieces of the fundraising messaging scaffolding we talk about. So you state a problem. You say, here's the solution that we, the organization, are supplying. Here's donor, how you can be a part of it. Here's how you can participate. And then finally, consequence is if we aren't doing this, if this problem isn't solved, here's the bad that can happen. Again, the reminder, any order, just all four need to be present. It's not a strict recipe you have to follow in and how much of this and how much of that. Just make all four present as you present your fundraising offer. Consequence. So think about, and what typically happens is in consequence, you'll veer one of two directions. You will go full on guilt. I jokingly talk about children are going to die and people are going to go to hell, right? And
Yeah.
kind of covers it. Well, probably down a notch
Walk that
from
back a
that.
little
Yeah,
bit.
just a little bit. I mean, even if those are true, okay, let's just say those are true. There are other ways to talk about mortality. There are other ways to talk about eternal issues. And so because I didn't get, you were so terse, I didn't get any information about what you do. So it's hard to give examples of that, but the way to do it is to think about, go to the problem and think about, if this problem continues unabated for the next year, 5 years, what does that mean? Or if in the next year, 100 more families experience this problem, what will it mean to them? What will it mean to their neighborhood? What will it mean to their city? What will it mean to the next generations? And you just play that out in a brainstorming, creative way, writing all the things down. And then you put it against the solution that you, the organization, provide. And you just want to be sure your solution is going to at least address or touch or be connected to that before you give a consequence in that you don't address with your solution. Because you can't be all things to every consequence you can imagine, right? And so some of the examples we have done in various other times is, if say you're doing clean water somewhere, and you don't want to dive deep into the various parasites and the problems that are associated with that, but you do want to just call out, dirty water has these negative effects on the life of a family, on a child growing up, the consequences for brain development, for body development, impact on healthcare, impact on the family's ability to raise crops or to provide for themselves. So just play those things out. Then you're going to start seeing some constellation of ideas that are going to coalesce, and you begin to throw some creative juices at that to kind of think that through. Then test it. Does this make sense? Will a donor understand and connect with it? So it is about, get your consequences from the unabated problem.
Yeah.
If I still didn't answer it, tell me what you do, and I'll play the game.
We'll give an example.
Yeah.
Unless you run a sloth sanctuary.
Yeah. Still waiting for that email.
Hopefully, one of these days.
But we don't want to hear from an attorney.
Yeah, no, not an attorney. Anybody else. So mine is not quite that terse. We have our big annual event in late October. How do I plan for that right now?
Good luck.
In person, online, hybrid, and then an extra question mark. I'm not really sure where that's supposed to go, but just a couple extra question marks. So like you, I don't know what you do, dear listener, but change is going to be the only constant we are going to run into in the next year or so. And especially between now and late October, right now it's late August, I would look first back at the past. So last year, you said it was an annual event in your question, so I assume you did something at this time last year. So I'm just going to bet it was all online. Maybe not, but if you went all online last year, did it work? Did it do well?
Yeah.
Or did it do well enough that it can be tweaked? And start with that as your base. Because if it went really well, we saw lots of people and then clients who did online events and actually aren't really interested in going back to paying a caterer and
renting
a
a hall
and a facility.
Yeah.
But there are some who still kind of want to do that. So look at what last year did and how that went and tweak off of that. Another thing you can do is not instead of that, but in addition to, is talk to some of your closest donors to try to put feelers up to what people are thinking, because your community is going to be different than other communities around the country, people listening, and the appetite for in-person or not is going to change and is going to be different, because you don't want to be tone deaf. You don't want to make a bad decision that has ramifications, not getting into that, but you don't want to make the wrong decision online or in person outside of fundraising. And hybrid that could attract people of that's the best of both worlds. Let's just do that. Well, you're paying a caterer at this point something. You're paying some sort of facility. That's an outlay of cost and capital that might not be worth it. So I'm really glad I'm not in the event planning business right now.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody who is.
Yeah.
But for your event, listener, look in the past, look at what you did last year as a starting point. Maybe do that exact same thing. See what people are talking about wanting. If it's a big annual event, your close donors know it's coming up and have thought about it, and go from there. Would love to hear how it goes, or if you have a follow-up question, please let us know.
Yeah. I would add, I was just thinking about all the client calls I have been on, which are basically a different set than you have been on, and geography matters a lot. What is happening in your area may be one of the more significant issues, because as we've talked to clients around, they're dealing with not only different rules, but their populations of donors with local clients.
They just think different.
They're having different thoughts, which I think is so interesting, because it plays to one of the things that we have that Winicity began with, is that your donors in this locale cannot think about you the same way donors in another locale think about another organization, even if in theory the two organizations are exactly alike.
There aren't apples to apples.
They are not.
Nothing is apples to apples in fundraising. And the other thing you should know about this, I should have said this up front, you should know somebody's going to be mad no matter what you do. So the goal should not be pleasing everybody or even pleasing the loudest person. It should be to have the most successful event, however you define that for your organization.
Yeah. Someday we got to do how to handle frustrated or unhappy donors.
Yeah, we could have done that right after your donors are wrong.
Yeah.
Here's what to do when they get mad because they heard you say that they were wrong.
Yeah. Well, maybe they just don't play that episode for you.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, that's good. All right, my next one is I'm still not clear on the difference between validation and thanking. It seems when I say thank you for your gift, and then I like this part. Parenthetically, it says, okay, I'll use the dumb sloths. Thank you for your gift to help sloths have a home. Then I'm both thanking and validating. Okay. Thank you for using sloths. That's awesome. It might have been helpful to know what you really do, but okay, that's good. Here's why that's different is by putting thank you with any sort of validation, you put the focus on the thank you. So I highly recommend separate sentences, paragraphs, messages, impacts, so that you say, thank you for your gift received, credited to this, you're making a difference. Duh. Your validation says your gift of $100 to help, what do they say? Sloths have a home.
They love sloths.
Want you to know that the new sloth home has a mother and 3 little baby sloths. One of the little babies we were afraid wasn't going to make it, but now is gonna, because it's got a warm, safe home. And so do you see the difference? Not only am I kind of banging on the emotion part there, I mean, little sloths are so cute. It is to say very specifically, your gift did this. And I'm not saying thank you, because I've already said thank you. And it's not that those are magic words you should ignore, but you're focusing on the result of the gift, not any sort of acknowledgement that it was received and accounted for properly and, hey, we're doing all that stuff. It's, here is the difference you made. I'm feeding back to you on a stewardship wavelength. I'm feeding back to you that your gift, you can feel wonderful about your gift because of that.
Yeah, good job. That's very validating, even though, tell us what you do if you send us a question. We can guess.
I might have made a guess off of the
domain thing, but
and I didn't feel like.
Well, and we guess, then we're going to guess wrong, and then we're going to get in trouble.
Yeah,
and
then
that's when the lawyers call.
Yeah, might betray confidences.
All right, my last one. There's no way except just reading the whole thing. Guys, love the podcast. Thank you. I'm new to my role, and my organization hasn't had good Giving Tuesday results recently and has basically avoided it in the past few years. I want to have a good one, but where do I start? So first, let's just get it out of the way. Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So you have Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Boxing Day comes in there at some point.
No, Boxing Day's after Christmas. Come on. So it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Depending on when Thanksgiving ends, sometimes that's early December. Sometimes it's the last day of November. Either way, Thanksgiving the next Tuesday. And it's a national push to give to nonprofits. And it's attractive to organizations because it will be in the A block every hour of Good Morning America today. They will be talking about...
Are those guys still in the air?
I think so.
Okay.
They'll be talking about Giving Tuesday. And big organizations will be talking about Giving Tuesday. And so smaller nonprofits, and especially the Little Davids of the world, really want to get in there because this is a giving day. This is a day.
There's momentum.
Yeah.
Ride that wave.
People are already thinking about giving.
Yeah.
It's really easy for me to slip in there and get into it. However, it gets both a better reputation and a worse reputation than it deserves, Giving Tuesday, because it gets a better reputation in that this is the best day to go after donors because everybody's ready to give. It isn't that good. It gets a worse reputation than it deserves because some people can say, well, it's worthless. You should just completely ignore it. You can't compete with the big guys. It doesn't matter. It's not quite that bad. It's somewhere in the middle. So the key to your successful Giving Tuesday campaign, both this specific listener and everybody else, is to start with tying in Giving Tuesday with your mission and your cause to answer the question, why should I give to this versus the last thing you sent me or the next thing you'll send me? Okay. What about today is any different? This is a Tuesday. Why is this
an important
better Tuesday for me to give versus last Tuesday? Does my dollar count more? Sometimes you can go at a donor to get a Giving Tuesday match. And that could be the advantage of this national attention Giving Tuesday gets. You can go to a donor who might not have been interested in giving a match and say, Giving Tuesday's coming up. I'd like to go after people. Will you give us a match? And because Giving Tuesday, they just hear that and they want to get in. That answers the question of why I should give to this, why this stands out.
Double your impact, right?
Double your impact today only.
Yep.
And that's exciting. You can say, it is Giving Tuesday. It comes at this time of year. This time of year is really critical. These 2 weeks are really critical for whatever reason. Maybe you help kids after school and school's about to be out, and we need to make sure we've got enough food boxes for kids who aren't going to have 3 meals a day outside of school, or whatever it is. If Giving Tuesday ties into your message, why this Tuesday matters, that's a good campaign. That's a good idea. If it doesn't, I would say you are well served to either not send an email or address it.
Just ignore it completely.
Ignore it, or go to Facebook and just put up a couple posts, because that's essentially free through your social media intern. Basically, think about, okay, is there a way we can really deeply tie Giving Tuesday to us? If so, go down this path of a really nice, well thought out campaign. If not, either do nothing or do what is the most time and cost efficient thing. And it could just be an email that says, hey, today's Giving Tuesday. Lots of people are thinking about giving nonprofits. I hope if you do that, you will think of us and all the sloths that we help. Thank you so much.
Sort of like your sophomore American history class in college. You're just trying for a B and not to stand out.
Yep.
Right. The other thing I want to say is I think it's a genius way of phrasing that Giving Tuesday outsiders can think that's when money's falling from the sky, and you just got to stand out there with a bucket.
I
and
gotta
it's
just
going to
catch
land
it.
in there. And
Any idiot can raise
You know,
6-7 figures on Giving Tuesday.
it was really good in the early days, and it certainly has gotten challenging.
Well, like everything else, the marketplace has gotten crowded, and there could be 10 years ago there might be one or two local nonprofits talking about Giving Tuesday that gets all the attention. Now everybody who's gotten IRS certified is sending you a Giving Tuesday email, and it's crowded.
Suddenly, a very competitive place to be fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you phrased that. And I like it because it fits my bias, so it's good. To me,
Confirmation bias.
Yeah.
We like that.
I would just like to identify it, just be upfront.
we'll call it out.
All right, here we go. Last one. Hey, Winesty, what's one thing I can do right now to make sure we have a successful fourth quarter? We're a smallish nonprofit. We raise about $1 million a year. Our big mailer will go out in November. We do the usual online stuff, which is interesting to wonder what that is. An email newsletter, Giving Tuesday.
I was about to say they should start with a Giving Tuesday
and
campaign.
some year-end things. What else? Okay, so first, great question here, end of August is a great time. First, it's impressive that this person already kind of has things in place, it sounds like. That's excellent. So I don't think I can give you one what else. I'm going to give you a couple of things. First, listen to Ryan's answer on Giving Tuesday, previous question. On your mailer, no idea what you're doing there, but previous episode 23, where we had Chris Hoots on talking about data. The data is one of the mistakes many mailers make. They let the printer or whoever, if they're not using consultants or an agency, they let those guys dictate who they mail to, which can result in you mailing to people who you certainly have their name and address, but they're not good prospects, or mailing to people who somehow you've got their names and ignoring some lapsed donors. So I would say first, look at who look at who you're contacting in the fourth quarter, and lay that out, saying, okay, and it's not mentioned here, but I hope you have a major donor list, or you've identified some of your more significant donors. What are those people getting? Then, what in the fourth quarter are our general donors, our whatever you call them, sustainers, main donors? What are they getting? So you make sure you're covering all your bases, and then probably the two things to do is your year-end things. We have tested a number of times on year-end stuff, and for our clients, all of whom in this test, as I recall, were Christian faith-based organizations, making a big deal about taxes was actually
the tax deductibility, the tax refund.
That actually chilled the results in really good head-to-head testing. And so the thing to do with year-end is call out, this is the year-end. It is a great time to give. Back to your Giving Tuesday, why should you give now? It's not about the tax deduction. Surely you've got some good reasons. Go ahead and deadline it 12/31, December 31st. But don't make it all about taxes unless you're very
because anybody who's looking to park their tax deduction in your port, they've already decided that's why they're giving, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're already driving in.
Yeah, and they're usually millennials anyway. So they're So last thing to do is examine what you're doing with major donors. And so one of the things that I would recommend is, and we're doing this with almost all of our full service clients, is make sure your major donors, who whatever that group is, and major donors are any dollar amount, they're just the top of the pyramid in dollars that are significant to your organization. Make sure they have been crisply and clearly validated for their past giving. If you haven't done that, do something in September and October to make sure they know, and we've done previous episodes where we've talked about how this works, make sure they know their past giving makes a difference. Don't worry about the getting dollars from that impact. If money is an issue, and it is for all of us, send them an email. Emails cost practically nothing. Just remind them they made a difference. Very specifically validate. Then make sure they get a very strong ask. One of the things that Chris Foods does in major donor data is some math to be sure a major donor, and this is one of the techniques you can use, make sure that major donor is going to give at the level they were at last year or above. And that gives you an ask you can go to. And you can even say, hey, last year you gave us $10,000 or $300. Would you do that again because of this need X? Okay. That's what I would do. That'll make a difference.
Nice. Well, it would be better if, because we are who we are, we're going to criticize pretty much anything and everything. So when you send us your questions for the third mailbag, tell us what you do.
Just give us a category.
We're not going to betray any confidence.
Yeah.
Tell us sloths, people experiencing homelessness, kids after school, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just give us a category. It'll help us answer better.
You'll get a much better answer.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's true. It'll be a more detailed answer. I don't know that. Yeah, well, you'll be the judge if it's better.
Yeah, let us know how that works.
It'll be more detailed.
Okay.
But this was episode 24 of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. On our next episode, we're going to talk about the best way to increase your organization's footprint is by encouraging donors to get a tattoo of your organization's logo.
I like that.
It'll work.
That'll work.
I'm Ryan Thomas.
And I'm Steve Thomas.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Tune back in next week for another fresh episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast.